Muted. Okay.
How do
Hello.
you, how do you get such a nice background there? Are you
I don't know what I did. I was playing today for everyone that's going to be watching. I was playing. So hold on one second.
Thank you.
You think this will be okay?
Yeah, I think it's good. Thank you.
I'm just making sure. I guess it's working fine this time. And now what I'm waiting to see is I actually might be taught myself, and I'm telling the world this right now, that I think I finally figured out the Facebook today. So
Wow.
we'll know momentarily.
Yeah, once you figure out, maybe you can teach me.
Well, I had to first teach myself what I was doing wrong. So let me play for a second because I've got to double check the Facebook. Let's see, dismiss. And Leah is going to check for us as well. So let me get my texting going while we're waiting for me to be ready. Almost there. How was your day, Dr. Dow? Tell everyone how your day was.
Very good. Busy taking care of patients. Seeing some limited amount of patients in-person service. Also doing quite a bit of phone consult and video consult as well. And has been very productive. Very, very good day. And it's raining outside, so I'd rather be inside right now because it looks still pretty gray. So
yeah, it hasn't stopped raining all day.
well, I haven't looked out, so until now I've been looking out, I'm going like, this is pretty gray.
Yeah, my dogs are not very happy with me because normally they'll even get a walk in the rain if it's light. Right. But today they didn't because it has not stopped pouring all day.
Yeah,
I am.
So. I can see. I can absolutely see.
Yeah. So do you want to get started a little early?
Sure. Why don't we?
Okay. All right. So I guess I'll start by saying thank you so much, everybody, for joining us for another episode of Time with Dr. Dow in terms of a webinar and information that he loves to share with you. We love to talk about women's wellness, and Dr. Dow is certainly a foremost expert, and it's a wonderful opportunity for us to get together and share information back and forth. This is the first time that Dr. Dow and I have not been together to do this, which makes us both sad, I know. We're practicing social distancing, and we want to set a good example for the rest of you. So I'm at home and Dr. Dow's at the office. And so tonight, Dr. Dow, we're going to talk about eggs and sperm. Exciting topic.
Always.
I expect some silliness to unfold in this conversation.
Yes, I look forward to it.
Yes, so that's one of those things that are not rehearsed, and we'll just see how the conversation plays out. But you know, we want to talk tonight about ways that men and women can become more fertile. And obviously, you know, it's an important topic, even in today's times and what's going on right now with coronavirus. People are still trying to have families and do things to prepare for either natural conception or fertility treatments. So this is a wonderful topic, and I'm glad that we're sharing it with everybody tonight. So to start, let's talk about, like, before we drill down into the nitty-gritty of all the different things that men and women can do to improve their fertility, can you share with all of us what you feel is one of the most important factors to consider when it comes to fertility? Like, what is, and probably this leans a little bit more towards women than men, but it does play in a factor for both. What would you share with us?
Well, I think regardless, I mean, we have many different situations. There's some couple, there's some woman who's doing it as a single woman. There is gay, there's lesbian situation, as well as transgender situation. So there's many different aspects of how to pursue fertility and having children. I think at the bottom line, I mean, at the end point, all we want is to have a healthy child and to have a healthy family, even if it's a single family, to have a healthy family. Regardless whether or not we are co-parenting or just a regular situation. But I think what we need to look at is age. Age is probably the most important factor in both men and women. Women, and I'm going to talk to both actually. Sperm and the egg, the quality and the quantity of both the sperm and the egg really diminishes through time. So as we get older, we don't have as many eggs or as many sperm, and also the quality is not as good frequently. So I think it's important to really appreciate that age is the #1 variable. And there are some situations that sometimes you can overcome the age in a very short period of time, but you cannot overcome your age in a long period of time. So what I mean by that is you can definitely eat better and have a better lifestyle and do some Chinese herbal medicine and acupuncture and different modalities to really help to preserve or strengthen your fertility so that there is some short-term changes. And sometimes some changes can be quite profound. For example, if you have a situation where that you're just not ovulating properly, or that your egg quality is poor because of some sickness or some situation, sometimes when you remedy that sickness or you strengthen the constitution, it can make a huge difference in that egg quality, in the follicular quality. So it's important to understand, even though that the age might be a variable, there are actually quite a bit of things that you can actually do to, here's the key, in a short-term period or a temporary period, to try to strengthen that egg quality and be able to help you to achieve that goal of pregnancy or having a child. So I think it's important to really do that preparation work. A lot of time it's not about the day you're getting pregnant, it's actually all the preparation work before you get pregnant. So for example, our body has selected the follicles that's going to be ovulated, say for example in this cycle, about 5 to 6 months ago. Your body's already having kind of like, it's like an assembly line. So there's already some egg that's already been developed or already been identified earlier on as they go through the pipeline, going from a primordial follicle to antral follicle and to a basically a growing follicle and maturing follicle. So a lot of time there's that whole process. So is when we trying to get pregnant, you need to understand that the pregnancy you have is actually could be the egg you already selected last month or 6 months ago. So a lot of time you have to think going backward. So if I need to get pregnant in 3 months, then I need to prepare myself today. I don't wait until say, okay, I mean, this is the cycle I'm gonna get pregnant, let me prepare this cycle. That's frequently a little bit too late. So I often tell a patient that you want to try to prepare about 3 months out. There's some situation you may even need to prepare up to 6 months out. But normally 2 to 4 months out is actually the standard to try to get your cycle regulated, get your hormone level more balanced, and get your vaginal discharge better, get your flow to be better, get your blood production to be higher and richer and more robust. So those are kind of things that we can do before that you even ovulate. So you got to try to go backward a little bit. So age is the biggest variable, and that's in women. In men, is in men is the same thing. So a lot of times, excuse me, let me get some water.
No problem.
In men is the same thing. So in a situation where that if you're trying to get pregnant and the sperm production cycle is approximately 72 to 90 days. So the sperm that's designated or being selected today to ejaculate is probably has already been starting that production about 72 to 90 days ago. So if you want to change the quality of your sperm, the semen, you want to start working on it 2 to 3 months ahead of time. And what do you work on? Well, as men goes, there's a lot of things that immediately you must do right away in the sense of lifestyle. For example, the ingestion of marijuana, the smoking, as well as alcohol and leisure drugs. These are the four major things that you want to try to avoid during this period of time, because these are the four things that we have found to have great impact on the sperm quality, both in the quantity as well as in concentration, in the motility as well as morphology. And it also does something to the DNA as well. So to start with, some of these vices it has to go. And then you have to eat well. And I think eating 3 meals a day regularly and also exercise regularly can be extremely helpful. And also don't sit for a long period of time. When you sit for a long period of time, the blood pools by your pelvis area. And as we know, testicle, the reason why testicle is outside of our body is because it needs to be a little bit lower than our regular body temperature to produce a good quality of sperm. So therefore, you want to really make sure that you don't sit there for a long period of time, just having all that blood pool there and it gets really hot. It's almost like a heat sink, and that's going to weaken the sperm quality.
Dr. Dow, I have to interrupt you because you're giving me the giggles because I didn't know that's why testicles were outside the male body.
Otherwise, the testicle could be just inside the body all
many
this
other
time.
reasons why they're outside that I will keep to myself, but
Yes, and also the ovaries, and if you think about the opposite, it's very true, is that the ovaries are in the depth of the pelvis. So in some ways, the ovary really, really needs that heat, needs that temperature. So warming the body, keeping the body warm for women actually is really helpful for the fertility. Yeah. So opposite is true. If a man overheats, then the sperm is not going to be as good.
Sure.
If a woman gets too cold, then the egg quality is not going to be as good.
Okay. No, it makes a lot of sense. You know, let's back up for a second too, because you spoke about how for both men and women, it's months in advance to prepare before you're even going to start really producing the quality in the egg that you're looking for, particularly if you're looking to freeze or maybe do a transfer versus natural conception. And obviously sperm too, it takes months in advance. So from just also from an emotional perspective, before we get even deeper into the things that men and women can do with nutrition and day-to-day lifestyle, what about just in terms of emotionally, spiritually, whether they're single or in a relationship, that preparing mentally many months in advance, what are some of the things they need to be thinking about from that perspective so that they're in the right mindset? Because I remember going through it myself personally. That was a struggle, trying to get into the right mindset of being calm and not stressed. Can you share with us some of your insight on that?
Stress level is very high when you're trying to get pregnant. In fact, every time when you have a period comes, you literally have a disappointment. Mm-hmm. And you basically have to sweep yourself up from the floor of the devastation of having a period and get yourself back up, so to speak, on the horseback again and start riding again. And a lot of times there's no time to waste. In some way, as you were just trying to get your period, your body is already trying to select a follicle to ovulate as early as then, mm-hmm. even though it takes some time to grow. So the emotional impact is great. And sometimes we often say infertility can cause infertility. So what it means is that because of such a heightened stress level,
sure,
that stress level actually further interferes and interrupts the good production of the follicle. It may actually change how you ovulate and actually make even decrease your fertility potential. So we often say infertility can cause infertility. Some people who has done a research on the stress level of infertility or going through trying to get pregnant is as high as having loss of a parent. That's how high it is, and that's how devastating it is almost every month. I think the key here, there is several things. There's actually four things that you want to do. First of all, you have to manage time. Okay, your perspective and your perception of time has to be managed. So a lot of times, instead of like thinking every month you gotta be pregnant, and then if you're not pregnant, you're devastated. I think it's more of a plan. You have to plan it out. So a lot of times you might say, hey, you know what? I'm gonna give myself this year, okay, the next 8 to 12 months. I'm going to go ahead and do some insemination and IVF. This is my goal this year. And I'm going to do as many as I can. I'm going to try to retrieve as many follicles as I can. I can see if I can get them fertilized, bank them, get them PGT, get them tested, and see if they are viable embryo. Okay, and that's what I'm going to do this year. If that doesn't work out, next year I'm going to try to do it naturally. Okay, and if that doesn't work out, I'm going to do donor egg the year after. So I think the key is that the journey of becoming a mother does not have to be only one way. There's many different ways to become a parent, many different ways to become a mother. You don't have to always just nail or glue to one particular way. There are many other possibilities for you to do. I mean, you might be different. I mean, you might not be able to do your own egg, but at least you'll become a mother, right?
Yep.
You may not be able to have the sperm that you desire, but you may have to be a donor sperm. Or that you may have to be a surrogacy, where you're borrowing someone's body and uterus to carry your child. I mean, these kind of things happen all the time. And it doesn't mean, I mean, you're still going to become a parent.
Absolutely. Yep.
It may not be the journey, the path. The journey that you're going through may not be exactly what you think that it may be, but your end going, the end point, the end goal, the end achievement is going to be the same.
I thought it was important that we really talk about that too, because it's such a tremendous piece of the process. And for a lot of people that haven't, maybe they don't know anyone that's had fertility challenges, or they haven't really talked to a doctor about it. There's so much more preparation beyond what we take in internally, meaning food and nutrition. There's so much up here that we have to prepare, and those pieces are really important. And I think also, just like you shared so many different options, I think being open to a multitude of plans actually alleviates so much of the stress, where if you get fixed on just one option, it actually creates more stress. And so, like you said, when you give yourself some time and freedom, research options and things like that, it helps alleviate a lot of the pressure, especially as women, that we put on ourselves.
Yeah,
because that certainly can be so tremendous.
And actually, there's some women often say, "Well, Dr. Dell, I cannot go there. I gotta like focus just on thinking, getting pregnant this way. I cannot think the other way, because I think the other way, I feel like I'm gonna lose it here." That is a fear that's there, but the reality is that fear is not necessarily warranted. In fact, when you hold on so tight, that rigidity and that intensity is often a stress producer. Okay, that creates so much stress. So letting go a little bit, step back a little bit, think about a plan in the next period of time. I think that's more important.
Absolutely. Okay. So some of the other things that I know you wanted to talk about today before we get into the specifics of men and women as individuals There's a couple other things that are definitely important. And one of the ones that I know you speak about is sleep.
Yeah. I think the sleep, if there's anything that you can do to improve your fertility, sleep probably going to be at the top of the list. And as you know, and you'll probably know this, that sleep is restoration, is repair, is maintenance. So in some ways, your body, when it's rested, well slept, well rested, your body can heal itself while you're sleeping. It can get its hormones regulated while you're sleeping. In fact, some of the best quality of female hormones and men hormones, androgens, are very much secreted while you are sleeping. So for women, is like between the time of 1 to 3. That's where the best quality of hormones start to really secrete. And that's also when you go through menopause. For a lot of women, 1 to 3 is a time where you realize, oh my God, I'm not having hormones coming in. You know why I don't know? You know why I know? Because I'm waking up with night sweats. I'm waking up, I got some night sweats, I got some nightmare, I'm going like, I'm anxious, I couldn't sleep. It's like, what's going on here? Well, that's because that's a time where the estrogen or the hormones supposed to come in, the secretion of hormones are supposed to come in. It either did not come in as well, there's the lack of it, or the quality is not as good. And that's why you have all that disturbances of the sleep. So the wake and sleep cycle gets disturbed. So in a woman that we are trying to keep our hormones strong, we need to have good sleep. We need to have good sleep hygiene if we can make it work. What that means is making sure that we try to be regular. Our body like regularity. So in a sense, it's trying to go to sleep by 9 to 10 o'clock. Okay, this is a very good time to go to bed. And trying to wake up somewhere around 6 or 7. Okay, so I think for a lot of women, 8 to 9 hours sleep is really important for a lot of women. Some women can do it a 7 hour. I don't recommend anything shorter than 7 hours. Okay. 7 to 8 hours, kind of like the least that you can do. Ideally for some women, 8 to 9 hours. And some women even need 9 to 10 hours. Sure. So it really all depends on each individual. Having a good sleep really helps to preserve your egg quality.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. And you spoke earlier about stress a little bit, and then I kind of took us to a different direction. So let's come back to that. Stress is an important factor for both men and women. Mm-hmm. You talked a lot about the pressure, and again, especially for women, I know we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, and men as well. It's really difficult for them. I think with, again, not speaking for a man, but knowing that my husband went through it, and the ego and being able to perform and process good sperm, as much as we as women are trying to make great eggs and things like that. It's a lot of stress and pressure. What are some ways that you can suggest for men and women to help manage that stress and pressure beyond what you've already shared?
I think the linguistics are very, very important. So what that means is that the story that you're telling yourself and the words that you're putting out and the phrases you're speaking of, the energy that you carry makes a difference on your stress level. Mm-hmm. The situation is already stressful, but you can make it easier on yourself. Okay, often speak something more positive. Okay, speak something that is much more constructive. And don't go to the destructive side. It's going to be very easy for you to want to throw a ball, to feel better, to hit something. Sometimes that does work, but sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it just make you sad and depressed and make you even more not happy. Okay, so a lot of times I think it's this kind of thing can really break a relationship apart. Mm-hmm. I think when you go through this kind of tension, I think it's very important to really have what I call a download time. Sometimes we call it venting time, where if you have a husband and if you have a partner, you get together and say, let's spend half hour every night. This is our venting time. Okay, the venting time is basically, this is what I'm scared of. This is what I worry about today, how I feel about today. And just really frame it, put it in the box. so that we can like look at it together as a partner.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then what I suggest is that, and often I suggest to take a walk, like a night walk or afternoon walk or before or after dinner, where that just kind of vent. And then after you finish venting, don't go back to it again. Let it go. You know, you done your venting, let it go. Don't bring it back to your home. It's like creating a sanctuary place in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes it's your whole entire house, or sometimes it's in your bedroom. Okay, so there's like a certain rule that you can create with your partner. Say, hey, you know what? We're not going to bring so much stress home. Okay, or we're not going to bring so much stress in these rooms. Okay, everything we're going to do, we're going to leave it out there or leave it in those rooms, for example. Okay, the language you speak is so critical, so critical.
Yeah, the
Well,
self-talk, the conversations we have with ourselves.
very important.
Yes.
So, for example, instead of say, you know, like, you know, it's like instead of like hitting something and just like pouching, instead of that, verbalize it in a different way. So say, I'm really unhappy about this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just, and it's not something I can solve, but I'm really unhappy. Just I'm unhappy that I got my period today. Okay, it's really just upsetting. I'm in pain. I have a lot of clots. You know, or I don't have any cramp. My period is too light. I need to get heavier. This is really upsetting me.
Mm-hmm.
I just need to just get it out there, get it off my chest. I need to talk about it. So I think it's important to kind of frame it in that sense, and
Absolutely.
then and careful not to have all your stress migrate in everything in your life, because when you start doing that, then it's like, you know, there's a saying that what we are scared of is not really the matter, but the fear itself. Okay. So it's like the emotion itself just becomes a contagious disease. It becomes contagion. So it start to migrate in everything that you do. Okay. And that is really a bad way to deal with stress. It doesn't help. You need to compartmentalize it, put it in the box. Okay. And then once that box is done, you move to something else. Now it takes training. I'm not saying that it's easy to do. I'm saying that it does take a certain amount of consciousness and take a certain amount of reminder and training. And it's perfect for two people to do it together.
So for women that are on this beautiful adventure on their own, where would you suggest that they find support?
They need to find a partner, or they need to find a best girlfriend, or even a mother to go through it with you. Obviously, sometimes mother may be a little bit difficult because it's generation gap. But the reality is that most mothers are very, very loving and very understanding.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a great opportunity to develop a relationship. Some mothers are very good listeners, and that's what you need. You need somebody who is a good listener. So you may want to sort out and find out, hey, you know what? I don't have a parent that's a good listener. Maybe my girlfriend here, that's a good listener. And I sometimes function as that good listener too. I listen to my patients and I try to understand where they're coming from.
Absolutely.
Difficulties.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the difficulty they go through. You know, some of the things I can help them to change, some of them that I cannot. So,
Sure.
you know, you're getting your period right now. I cannot shift that. You know, you're ovulating right now. I cannot change that. So that'd be if I go through that process. So those are kind of things that that you need to do and find somebody who can help you to be like a bouncing board with you.
Absolutely. Yeah, the emotional support is extremely important.
Very much so. Very much so. Yeah. And also sometimes there's some people who doesn't understand what you go through, but you need somebody who's compassionate.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you don't have experience, but somebody is very empathetic and compassionate,
Mm-hmm.
can fill that void, can be really helpful in those situations.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I do want to share, just being that I've been through it myself. there are going to be many friends that are going to want to support and family members, but there will be specific people that will give you what you need and other people that won't. And that's okay. Some people may be going through the same thing as you, and they can relate to what you're going through. So they give you that advice, the things, the trigger words and the trigger support that you need, certain feelings they trigger, where other people are going to mean well, but it actually might piss you off. So I think knowing your own boundaries and knowing specifically, what your needs are, it's okay to pick and choose who you share with that information. It's a very delicate process. And I think that in order to truly take care of ourselves as men and women in that process, it's okay to be selective in who you share with. And I think that's important too.
Yeah, I do agree with you. I also want to say it's a little counterintuitive, but looking at receiving compassion and empathy, actually you will get a lot more of that by giving. So a lot of times when you have a friend who doesn't really understand what you're going through, I think it's important to be compassionate about it. Because it's not their fault.
No.
They are just trying to help, but they don't know how to help, right? They don't have the life experience. They don't have the challenges. So I think practicing empathy and compassionate with a particular case and situation, and you may not want to talk about a fertility issue with that person ever again, or don't need to. It's a way to kind of like be okay with it. And another thing is that also give. The truth is, yes, we have a fertility issue, but we also people who might have dying issues, who is degenerating, or people who are really sick. We need to lend them a hand. Sure. Sometimes by lending people a hand and helping others, you bring a lot greater love in return.
To yourself.
And that love can be really helpful for your hormones, because when you feel good about it, that your hormone rises naturally, and that's going to help you to reduce that stress level.
Absolutely.
So don't forget, it's counterintuitive, where you're like contracting down, but truly sometimes this is the time to give out a little bit, give that energy away a little bit, and that's where you're going to get a lot more in return.
Absolutely. Thank you for that wonderful reminder of giving to receive. Very important. So let's talk about nutrition for men and women. What are some key foods that they should be eating in terms of making excellent egg and sperm quality?
Nutritions are critical. Okay, so I often say, it's the funniest thing. I look at there's tons of research on nutrition in the sense of what would be good for our fertility. And I often say that it's funny how, there's some people who just eat McDonald's all the time, and they're the one who gets pregnant. So a lot of times you're like, oh my God, what is it about it? A lot of times, I think the key is called less restriction. If we put a lot of restriction on a diet, I think we actually gets backfired. It actually gets more stressful to manage that nutrition. I think the nutrition need to be balanced, but needs to be balanced in many different ways. You need fat, you need protein, you need carbohydrates, you need great hydration, you need fiber, you need all different nutrients to make it work. And probably one of the most important nutrients is going to be fats. But before I go there, I think there's an appropriate weight for everybody. Okay. So if you're overweight, I think losing a few pounds is going to be helpful. Okay. But if you lose too much weight in a quick hurry, your hormone might dive.
Yes.
So you got to be careful in those situations. Now, if you are thin, and if you frequently get hungry, and you frequently get low blood sugar, then you're not having enough reserve. Okay, so one of the symptoms I often ask my patient, do you get lightheaded easily? Okay, and the reason being is I just want to know if they are hungry easily or lightheaded easily, are they having low blood sugar? So in those situations, I want them to eat a little bit more fatty foods. Now there's good fatty foods. If you are, into, let's look at a vegetable kingdom, you got a lot of seeds that's got a lot of fatty acids, a lot of oil, and you have things, beans, quite a bit of beans like soybeans and different beans has a lot of oil content. Then you have the nuts. The nuts has a lot of oil too. Avocado has a lot of oil too. So, in a vegetable kingdom, you got quite a bit of resources there to give you a lot of fatty acids. Then on the other side, the animal kingdom, you also have a lot of food that's a lot of fatty acids too. You have beef, you have fish. All these are very, very good fatty acid that can be extremely helpful. So a lot of time I ask my patient, and if they don't eat enough fish or they don't, sometimes fish is expensive. So a lot of times say, well, then why don't you take an omega supplement, omega-3 supplement, be specific. Just get a fish oil. The smaller the fish, the better, less mercury concern. So I always advise things like anchovy oil or sardine type of oil. Those would be very, very good intake. It depends on each individual. Some people most people I suggest about 1,000 milligram a day. There's some people I actually ask for about 2,000 milligram a day. And I also look at how they absorb. If they start having diarrhea or lose stool with it, then I know they're not absorbing as well. Then I'm going to back it down. So to that point where they can absorb. In reality, you absorb and you digest better with actual food that you eat anyway. So that would be very helpful if you actually eat the actual food. So that's the fatty acid part. And the protein part, there's a lot of different protein that's very helpful. I often like proteins such as, again, beans has a lot of protein, grains has a lot of protein. If you're not gluten sensitive, I can tell you whole grain wheat is in a tremendous value, tremendous nutrition. It's not only rich in carbohydrates, very rich in protein as well. So don't just think that wheat is carbohydrate. Wheat actually can be a good protein source as well. Okay. So having said that, beans has a lot of protein source too. And having said that, eggs will be a very good nutrition. It's got so many amino acids on that item, and it's essential amino acids. So it's very, very important to have eggs also as well. Lean meat, any kind of lean meat, not too fatty of meat, actually can be very, very helpful. They also have a lot of amino acids, a lot of proteins. So these are kind of things that I would highly suggest to make sure that you have ample amount of protein. And a lot of time, there's some patient who just doesn't seem to digest or doesn't eat as much protein, or they might be vegetarian, where they don't really want to go to animal protein. So a lot of vegetarian, I tend to put them on a combination of amino acids, things like arginine, things like arginine and carnitine. These kind of amino acids tends to be very helpful to build the quality of the sperm and the eggs. So these are the kind of area that we would go to for protein.
Okay.
And the next thing is carbohydrates. Carbohydrates, I usually tell people to eat more complex carbohydrates. So things like yam and potatoes are better than cakes, better than simple sweets like candies and cookies and ice cream and that kind of things. So, since we are on this subject, don't forget dairy product is also a very good protein source. If you're not allergic to it, dairy product actually can be very helpful. All right, coming back to carbohydrates. So whole grains would be good. I mean, grain would be a large portion for actually, shall we say, for carbohydrates. But it doesn't have to be wheat alone. There's many, many different kind of grains, especially if you're gluten sensitive, you can definitely go to a lot of different other grains. Things like brown rice, things like wild rice, things like couscous, quinoa, and other type of grains. There's so many different ancient grains that can be really, really helpful. So don't forget that. I think that's very important. And the other thing is, I think eating time is very important. Making sure that you eat 3 meals a day with some snack, I think that's very, very healthy. And also making sure that's on time, making sure you eat approximately 15 minutes plus minus to the normal time that you eat. So that way that keep a consistency. What your body likes is that if you keep that consistency, your body doesn't go into the fear flight mode. And so a lot of time when you go into fear flight mode, it can actually dampen your female hormone a little bit because the adrenal then start to rise, adrenal hormones start to rise. And sometimes that energy takes away from the female hormone for reproduction because you're thinking that, hey, fighting for your life. So we don't need to get pregnant at this moment in time. So I think it's very important. And actually, it's a funny thing I often say, it's like if you eat well and you feel you eat nutritiously, your body knows that, hey, you got enough resources of food. So therefore, I'm going to be able to get pregnant and the body will. So frequently, that's the situation. And, occasionally, if you're going to eat like hamburger, it's not an issue. In fact, I frequently I have 2 or 3 patients that just a runner or athletes and they're vegetarian. It's too thin, and I actually prompt them to eat some fish and prompt them to eat some beef, and they're disgusted with me. I mean, they're just not happy with me. But I say, listen, I want you to get pregnant, okay? So eat according to the stage of your life, and if you be vegetarian for the rest of your life afterwards, I don't care. It's good. It's great. But you're older. You're not young spring chicken. You need all the help you can get. So a lot of time, I have seen several times where that actually helped them in their pursuit, in their fertility. And that became successful. Not all the cases, some cases.
Dr. Dell, you talked about omegas in terms of supplements. What about other supplements like royal jelly and other things that are helpful for improving quality of eggs and sperm?
There are other supplements that could be extremely helpful, even to a point of melatonin can be really helpful. People who's anxious, people who's lack of melatonin, don't sleep well, lack of sleep, having a little melatonin, somewhere around 2 to 4 milligrams per day, especially around bedtime, is actually helpful for their hormones. So don't underestimate that melatonin could be very helpful. The other thing is CoQ10. Coenzyme Q10 is a precursor catalyst in the sense of helping our ATP. ATP is that energy battery cell that's in our cells, and so when we take the coenzyme Q10, our ATP tend to function better. So what that means, we tend to feel like we have become more alive, we have more energy. So for people who have low energy, I think a CoQ10 somewhere between 400 to 600 milligram is probably ideal to take on a regular basis. That can be very helpful. Other things, I talk about fish oil. I talk about arginine and carnitine. I also talk about the CoQ10. Other things like royal jelly. Royal jelly is basically the secretion that is produced by the worker bee, and it's only eaten by the queen bee. Every hive, there's a queen bee. And there's only one queen bee in every hive. You have 2 queen bee, that doesn't work. One of them is going to be dead. They're going to fight to death. Yep. So 1 queen bee, okay, it's like 1 chef in 1 kitchen, okay? You can have 2 chefs, okay? 9 will be flying, okay? So we got 1 queen bee, and the queen bee eats this food that's secreted by the worker bee, and it's only for the queen bee. And the queen bee lays probably around 2 million of eggs, 2 million eggs in their lifetime. That's all they do. Queen bee, that's all they do. They are egg layers, okay? That's their reproduction, okay? So a lot of the beekeepers, what they would do is that when the workers bee produces these substances, this royal jelly, they would go in and scrape some of it, and they would take some out. They don't take everything out because the bee will just probably eat you up. Thinking about you stealing things from the queen bee. So you take a small piece, you take a small portion every day, a little bit, and then you filter them. And sometimes they sell it raw. where they sell basically they cook, they heat it up, they sterilize it a little bit. So there are different ways to process it. But royal jelly is been used for many centuries for fertility, as well as for energy. And some of my patients really needs it, and it's been really great for some of the patients. So I've done royal jelly supplement also.
Okay.
And there's many other. So we can go through quite a bit of them, but I think we have other things that we want to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. So we talked about weight management, but let's also talk about exercise specifically. What exercise would you say is okay or is not okay when you're trying to work on quality?
This is a tough one because everyone loves to exercise. Well, not everyone. A lot of people love to exercise. And so we've been taught that exercise is really good for you and you should exercise regularly. And that's really true. You should still do so. But what we have found, especially when you get older, and if you have a limited energy reserve, actually not exercising as hard, it's actually helpful to preserve that fat content, and that actually help you to get pregnant and reduces miscarriages. Okay, so I often say, lazy ones gets pregnant the first. Okay, and I hate to say that. That's not really true, but the ones that just having happy-go-lucky, enjoying their life, not worrying about the exercise, and if they're not obese and they just have a moderate diet, usually life is good for them in some ways. But what I'm trying to say is that if you're an athlete, you really need to tone it down. Okay, so you don't want to, I suggest not to jog if it's possible. You can walk, you can hike, but not jogging or trembling. And you can do some treadmill. You can do a quick pace, just don't run. I don't want you to burn that fat. That fat there is so important. Your body knows that if you're burning that fat there too much, it's sensing that you may not have enough food resources. So it's your body adjusts accordingly. So I want you to exercise, but I would suggest more toning type of exercises. I love yoga. Okay. I love Pilates. I think these are very good toning type of exercises. That'd be really, really helpful. Any kind of Qigong, Tai Chi, Daoing, simple walking. You can even get on a spinning bike. Just don't bike so hard. Do some gentle biking would be good. Do some gentle treadmill. Do some gentle elliptical machine. Even do some gentle Stairmaster. You can do all that. Just don't burn too hard. So I would recommend no more than 1 hour exercise per day. In fact, ideally somewhere around 45 minutes. Okay. And then you can break it up. You can do 20 minutes here, 20 minutes later. And always look at your life. If you're doing too much already, don't overdo it. Your body does better. Your fertility does better when you're a little bit more lazy, when you have a little free time. For some odd reason, your body knows that.
Fascinating.
Because you're more relaxed.
Mm-hmm.
If you go, and you're like, you're used to it, right?
Yeah.
Get up, take a shower, do my hair, makeup, drive to work, curling my hair in the car, which most women do other things like drinking coffee in the car. The amazing amount of things that they do.
I'm not sure about hair curling. They'd have to have a place to plug it in.
Mascara. How do you do mascara when you're driving? I don't understand. You can do it perfectly. That's just
thick mascara.
Besides myself, you guys, you gal has skill sets. I don't think men can do it. It's just amazing.
That's because men don't multitask. We won't go into that right now.
We won't go into that.
Keep that to ourselves. What about blood flow? Blood flow is a key factor in fertility, improving blood flow for both men and women. What are the things that we probably have talked about some of them already, but could you highlight for us what are the things that improve blood flow, which improves fertility?
Well, keep yourself warm. That's kind of important.
And keep the boys cool, right?
Keep the boys cool. Okay. Yes. Keep the woman warm. Cuddling is really wonderful. Be able to cuddle, be able to hug. be able to just being together. I think that helps so much with that blood flow. And as I say, I didn't say no exercise, okay? I do say you do have to move. You do want to be active in your life, just not overly active. That can be very helpful with exercise, with blood flow. Now, there are actually a lot of different supplements, a lot of different herbs that can actually help with blood flow. So I think it's very important for you to seek out a good doctor of Chinese medicine who can prescribe some herb for you, or even a nutritionist who can tell you what kind of food or supplements that can be useful for increasing blood flow, for example. So like CoQ10 can be improvement in blood flow, like fish oil can be really helpful. So there's quite a bit of stuff that we can use.
And Dr. Dow, that's a perfect segue into talking about how acupuncture is a key factor in improving fertility. Obviously, this is something that you have been an expert in for over 30 years, and you have hundreds of baby pictures lining the walls to prove it. So at the office. So talk to us about acupuncture. You mentioned herbs, but what are the things that specifically that acupuncture does for both men and women to improve their fertility?
Well, I'm very blessed that a lot of patients that actually give me the opportunity to help them to get their uterus and the ovaries function better. When we do specific style and specific acupuncture treatments, we can literally improve the blood flow to the uterus and to the ovary. And that has been proven by utilizing a measurement called uterine flow impedance. It basically measures the pressure through Doppler ultrasound to see how much pressure there is and how much blood is flowing through. By measuring that index, we can, with a number, we can actually tell you how we are doing with the blood flow. And with some pilot study and some study that have shown that actually acupuncture does change that impedance of the uterine pulsatility. Pulsatility means, surges and, movement of the blood that going through the uterus. And so with that in mind, if we can improve the blood flow, obviously we're going to get that lining a little bit thicker, a little bit stronger, a little bit more robust, is more nutritious, so that if there is an implantation, that the embryo is going to get a better nutrient and it's going to get a better implantation outcome. The other thing is that the blood flow can go to the ovaries, which can help to develop better quality ovaries and can actually improve on the facilitation of growth of the follicles. Frequently, when we do acupuncture and even herbal medicine, these follicles actually grow a little bit larger than normal. They get a lot more robust. They get a little bit stronger. So we have seen changes because of the specific acupuncture treatments. And I would say that there are specific acupuncture treatment that you want to do during your period. There's specific acupuncture you want to do in your follicular phase and around your ovulation, in your luteal phase, so on. So an acupuncturist will devise the treatment plan, and they will modify accordingly, depends on the stage of your cycle you're in.
Okay. Let's talk also about, there's some other things that people probably don't know about or don't think about. And some of it relates just to, well, I guess it really relates to everybody, because when you're talking about lubrication, you need two people for that if you're trying to get pregnant. So let's talk about lubrication for a second, because I know a lot of people may not be aware that there are certain lubricants that are bad when trying to conceive. So what can you share with us about that?
Yeah, frequently the regular KY jelly doesn't work very well. So you need to go to a much more water base if it's possible. There is a product called Pre-C, and I'm trying not to endorse the product. It's not really for me to endorse, but it's a product that has been designed to and have shown that it doesn't slow down the sperm flow. And so that seems to work very well. It's called pre-C. There are other ways. There's some very thin combination of aloe vera and water, and that seems to have worked really well for some people. And there's diluted coconut oil. I personally don't really like the coconut oil as much because it's saturated fat. When you start to get into more the saturated fat, where it can congeal, because coconut oil has a very it become a solid state at a certain room temperature pretty quickly, so it can congeal very fast. So I think coconut oil is not my favorite, but some people swear by it. So you could definitely explore that. Aloe vera, I think water, any kind of water-based lubricant. I mean, even KY jelly has several different type of water-based. And don't get a one with some flavor or with some turmeric or with some God knows what in there, please, for sexual pleasure or whatever it is. It doesn't, it's not so good. Maybe you'll just kill the sperm. So I think it's important to just be really basic and really low key. And I think also, if you're not having enough lubrication, you may want to consult your doctor of Chinese medicine, because there are things that we can do to improve your lubrication. Or maybe that's a sign of, not just aging, not just a sign of aging, maybe there's something else. People, for example, some people have inflammatory activity or may have endometriosis. Their hormone level may not be as strong, or their body's less sensitive. So they may not be like having a good amount of discharge, for example. So in those situations, you may want to treat it properly.
Okay. And what about medications or things that, and this goes for both men and women, but I know, antidepressants, for example, or for men, maybe taking testosterone, those types of things can, sometimes not be helpful when you're trying to conceive. Can you share with us your?
Yeah, we can start with the men. I think we all know that for men to take direct androgen, any kind of testosterone, it backfires. So what happens is that when you take a testosterone into our body, what happens is that your body start to sensing this extra testosterone. Because of extra testosterone, your body just say, hey, you know what, let's shut it down. I mean, we don't need extra testosterone. So your own intrinsic production, your own internal production of this testosterone actually decline. So in a sense, that actually caused the sperm, the semen, to actually decline. So a lot of men that's taking testosterone, a lot of men taking testosterone for weightlifting, androgens for weightlifting to build muscles. A lot of time in those situations, you're gonna find that they're having some sperm issue. And so immediately we would usually want people to actually stop that, that situation. That could be helpful just by stopping that. And the other one is, I think, is Propecia, taking some medication for hair loss. Some of those products does not necessarily change maybe the quantity, but it does change the DNA, the quality, and it's implicated with abnormal sperm. So I think it's important to run those medication if you're taking them by your doctor, so that the doctor knows what you're taking. Now, on the other side of coin, there's something that actually could be helpful. So for example, when we have a situation where that we have excessive vaginal discharge, okay, there's some women that actually have very developed secretory glands. Sebaceous glands is very robust. So it's like a flood. Their vaginal discharge is so excessive. So therefore, in that situation, you actually, there is some report that shows by taking things like Mucinex, things that kind of like thins the mucus or decreases the mucus, and can be actually be very helpful in those situations, for example.
Okay.
Right? So aspirin, as some woman who gets older and their embryo doesn't implant as well, taking a little bit baby aspirin actually can be helpful. Thins the blood a little bit, reduce the inflammation a little bit. Baby aspirin seems to be helpful in some cases. So, so it's not like all drugs are bad. Some drugs can be uniquely useful. Now, talking about antidepressants, they're in general SSRIs, antidepressants, does not really affect your pregnancy. It does reduce your libido a little bit, and that might decrease some of the desire to get pregnant and maybe decrease the chance to get pregnant. Okay,
Sure.
and there may be that. But so far, we haven't really seen any kind of bad effect with it in the sense of, abnormal chromosome and that kind of stuff. So I think if you take an antidepressant, and if you have to take the antidepressant, you should do it. But it should be under the supervision of your physician.
Okay. And what about just household toxins or things that we regularly may interact with, just cleaning or working in the yard? What are things that we really should be avoiding when it comes to fertility?
Well, there's one thing that comes into my mind with this current COVID-19 situation. We are all using bleach pretty much excessively. And so we are literally bleaching everything. We are sanitizing everything. So a lot of these things are chemicals, and these chemicals can be harsh. Chlorinated is usually the gas that is harsh, being able to breathe the chlorinated gas. I think those kind of situations you want to try to avoid. In fact, if you're cleaning using that product, maybe you need to wear a facial mask to kind of shield away from some of these gas products, okay? And the other thing is that, if you're so worried about COVID-19, there are situations where you just use really hot towel, hot water with a towel and wiping surfaces with that, because that kills viruses. You don't have to always have to use a chlorinated product to kill the virus, okay? And I think that's a misnomer. I think people think, oh my God, only that can do it. No,
Sure.
no. That is really wrong. And I think that just sometimes it's overdue. Sometimes it's overdoing it.
So we've talked about a lot tonight. I wanted to make sure that we also, we didn't have any questions tonight. But as we get ready to wrap up, is there anything else you want to add for our viewers right now, our future viewers on eggs and sperm and having wonderful outcomes with fertility?
I think I want to just address the most current issue, which is the COVID-19 infections. I think a lot of fertility clinic has been closed, so a lot of time you cannot do any kind of insemination or any kind of stimulation at this point in time. Okay, so it does not mean that all is lost. Okay, yes, we might gonna be a few months before everything opens. This may actually be a very good opportunity for you to prepare yourself. Okay, by eating better, by sleeping better, by really changing your lifestyle. I mean, when is the last time you can do this? I mean, this is
Very true.
I couldn't clean my room all the time. I don't have time to clean my room. I mean, this is a time where I say, oh my God, I actually have time to clean my room. I'm gonna do it. So it's the same kind of thing. And it's like, when was the last time I can hike every day? Well, I cannot hike because they close all the trails. But when is the last time I can literally do a little bit more time for myself?
Sure.
So this is a kind of time, I think, preparation, this is actually the key. And this is a time where you really want to get on with your herbs, get on with your acupuncture treatment, and just prepare so that when the fertility clinic is ready to be open, you are ready to go.
I think that's wonderful, wonderful advice. It's so true. We're just in a very unique time right now. And to your point of what you talked about earlier, like finding the good, finding the positive, changing our outlook, our thoughts, and making it work to our benefit is really, really important. And you just shared amazing examples of how to do that, even during this crisis. So.
And if you want more information on fertility, I do written a book with Dana Herkos. This is on the Tao of Fertility. So you can buy this from our clinic or Amazon. And we also have a Qigong for fertility, for the practice of Qigong, for some meditative exercises. I think this is something that you can also get from our wellness here. So these are kind of things that it can help you to prepare you during this period of time.
I think that's also on the Dowstar website, correct?
Yeah, I think so. Yes.
AOSTAR.com. Okay,
That's
wonderful.
correct. Yes.
Well, Dr. Dow, thank you so much. I miss you. I'm selfishly like sad and missing you. I can't wait to hug you and see you soon.
I will give you a big hug when this thing is over.
Yes.
Okay.
But until then, be safe, be well. I'm glad that that you guys are open and that we're seeing patients right now. It's wonderful to see people coming in. So I hope that we can continue to take care of people, and we'll get through this. And we just very much appreciate all that you're doing.
Thank you.
All right. Good night, everyone. Be well. Thanks, Dr. Dow.
Good night.
Good night.